is the Anfield Wrap in association with RedsBet. RedsBet work with a company called FansBet to support fan-related causes and fan-related media. We're proud and pleased to partner with RedsBet in 2019, and we'll continue to do so. Whenever you sign up, do select which cause you would like any of your losses, their profits to go to. And of course, if this is not for you, this is not for you. Do gamble responsibly at all times. I've got Mel Reddy, I've got Rob Gutmann, I've got Ian Salmon, and I've got John Gibbons to talk about what exactly, John? Have you heard the Junior Firpo news? Have you heard the Junior Firpo call?
Don't talk to me about Junior Firpo. Me and Rob go way back with J-Dog, don't we?
Yeah. He was only Firpo to us a week ago, wasn't he? He's now got a first name, Junior.
Yeah.
First name, Junior, second name, Firpo.
Yeah. We've got all the details.
I know a bit about it.
We did a bit last week, didn't we, on Tour Player.
And we're going to do some more, Mel.
Hey.
Said pointedly.
Have you guys lured me here under false pretext?
My favourite thing
is actually the gutter show.
I didn't think we had any pretences, to be honest with you.
We've been very open, Mel, that there is not an agenda, and that we are just going as we see fit. But what I do want to say is I love, and this is the limit of my Firpo knowledge, the fact that he plays as a left back, a centre half, or a left winger.
Yeah, useful on champ, man.
Honestly, that's the first thing it made me think of. Suddenly, I've got the whole left side.
All left wing causes.
All left wing causes all the way down there.
It's very progressive.
There is no way Mel Reddy Liverpool are spending 45 million quid on a left back.
You see, this is where
all right, I'll say it. I'm of the view.
It becomes a gutter show.
No.
No, so Liverpool's plan is to have somebody that can deputise for Andy Robertson. And the idea was that it would be a young player that could then develop and not have the whole hang-up that I'm not getting many minutes, or because you expect Robertson to play the majority of the season. Obviously, with more games, there will be opportunities, but it's all the development process.
But it's not a reserve goalie. This is where I struggle with this, Mel. It's not a reserve goalie position, right? So, you want to rest Robbo. You probably want him to play, even if he stays fully fit, no more than about 80-85% of a long season. So there's quite a lot of games where you want this other lad to play. And there's the risk of so he can't be crap.
Yeah.
Or raw even.
Obviously, Liverpool are not
raw is the word, shall we say.
Crap players. But the number you've just given there, like 80-odd%, you want Robertson to play. You then have to bring in a player who's fine with only playing that 20-odd%.
I know.
And often is the case, those are younger players. Now, Lloyd Kelly, which is the left back Liverpool wanted to come in, they lost out to Bournemouth for £13 million. Why do they lose out to Bournemouth? Because he wants to play more regularly than that 20%. And he's still a young lad, but he thinks it would be better for him to feature more regularly than to watch somebody else and develop in terms of training and
come back to you in a second, Rob. In real terms, Ian Salmon, these are the first world problems of being the European champions, having got 97 points, is that it makes it remarkably tricky to, for instance, say we've got a hole here, we can do this. You're linked with the junior Firpos of this world. Easy for me to say. You're linked with the junior Firpos of this world, and you find yourself in this sort of situation where, to get a Firpo, you've got to be prepared to stump up 45 million for a lad who would not be playing many games at left back, because guess what? Our left back could be the best left back in the world. Yeah,
you're looking at a lad who's got to be prepared to play double figures maximum, literally just get into double figures. That's all he's going to do. If you're playing 20% of games, you're scraping into double figures.
Got Arsenal away first round of the League Cup, got beat.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you're out of it. You do the same thing in the FA Cup, you're out of it, and you're waiting on injuries. Andy Robbo probably is the best left back in world football, and this could be, our fullbacks could be the hardest positions for us to buy a second player for, because they're the ones where we've not rotated a great deal, and if we have rotated, we've rotated Trent and Joe Gomez, and that's the extent of the rotation. Andy Robbo's dropped out once, twice, and James Milner's sat in the place. Did we have a position where Moreno played once last season?
League Cup.
Yeah, and once again, he couldn't even make the bench, so we're not worried about that. It is one where we've got to be looking at somebody who is a reasonable alternative who is willing to be nothing more than backup. And if you're Firpo, you're not going to move anywhere, knowing that you're a £45 million player all of a sudden, and go, well, do you know what? 10 games a season.
Knowing that you start every week at United.
Yeah, because he's replacing Luke Shaw at that point.
Poor Luke Shaw. It's a tough one, and it's you all wanted to Liverpool to do business, and you're all looking at saying we do need a little bit, and you want us to strengthen, but it is the sell, isn't it? And it's how you do it. And I think it's almost easier if it's a front three player, because it's like, well, we're going to rotate and there's free slots there, and even if you can't move around, then the other lads can, and so you're in a situation where you might have someone who can say, well, I want to come in and I want to play left of a three, and that's all I really want to do. I mean, I don't think that would happen, but say it did, then you can say, well, okay, well, you're obvious one to come in when Mane needs a rest, but also if Salah needs a rest, then we can move Mane right, and blah blah blah, and so and same for me, so because those other lads are so versatile, and because there's different formations and stuff like that, then 4-2-3-1s and things. There's a lot of ways you can say you can get this lad into the team. So I'm not too concerned about the kind of the fourth forward that I think we need really, but left back does become a bit trickier. And even if the nice thing about this kid at Bristol City was he's going to turn into a centre half, isn't he? So you could do a kind of a reverse Joe Gomez sell to him, but even that, like, it's you're still thinking, well, there's a lot of centre halves to get past.
Just to come back to you on he's going to become a centre half thing, though, there is a bit of an issue, which is if you want to come and play full back for Liverpool, realistically, given how Liverpool tend to play, I think you're better off being the sort of fullback who can also do a bit higher up the pitch than being the sort of fullback who can do a bit of centre half. And the reason why is because we're so much on the front foot, we're so attacking. For instance, I mean, I know it's an extreme example, but I saw Klavan play left back at the Derby at Goodison 2 years ago, and it was painful.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't suit him, not because he's a bad player, but because suddenly, all of a sudden, he's going, hang on, what, you want me 25 yards higher than normal minute as a starting position, and then go from there? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's almost easier to imagine moving a midfielder to left back. It's easier to imagine moving Keita to left back than buying a centre half and putting him left back.
Well, we played midfielders a lot, full back, haven't we? And I think it's almost moved a bit past Joe Gomez, to be honest with you. Like, I think Joe Gomez was a bit of a problem away at Barcelona, because I understand why you picked him. I think if you could say to Jurgen Klopp, this is how much possession you're going to have in this game, I don't think you'd have picked Gomez, because I think it's, and I don't think he's a bad footballer, Gomez, but you're almost talking to these lads as wingers now, and he's not a winger. Yeah. And so I think ideally I think you'd want someone who can play both sides, but then you are getting into the realm of Championship Manager, aren't you? And you're going for that lad who...
Dennis Irwin.
There was someone from Roma I used to always get. I can't remember his name now.
There was Alexander-Arnold who ended up at Everton, who could play every position in Championship Manager.
Warhurst did a lot.
Yeah.
But no, I can't remember. So text me, someone.
Stevie Nicol.
I think the profile...
He'd be great.
Stevie Nicol would be great. I think the profile of Firpo, albeit he's just a name at the moment, isn't that mad, because he can, in theory, play two positions. I did YouTube the ass off him over the weekend because I'm such a pro, and he is very, very much the attacking variation of modern fullback, and hence you could quite easily see why he's a left winger as much as he is a left back. Now, okay, YouTube will only gives you a stylistic indication. The problem you've got is if you pick a kid, he's going to be too raw, so that if you actually do need him for that break glass moment when Robbo's injured, you've got a real hole in your side potentially for 4 to 6 weeks. Not just for the League Cup, sure, that's okay, but Robbo's played, say, 8 games on the bounce in March into April, and you just need in a big league game to put somebody else in a left back. A kid who hasn't been picked for 20 games and who is very much a kid is a difficult one to put in. The other thing is we say, let's bring a kid in and let him be patient, play 10, 12 games. What's the plan from the season after? Because Andy Robbo's 23, 24 now, maybe. Andy Robbo is holding down that spot for 8 years, really, if he continues on in the same vein. So no kid's getting any breakthrough here at Liverpool. And I don't think it's easy for an agent to sell to a player, never mind a club. Do you want to come to Liverpool? Piss about getting 8 to 10 games a season for about 3 years, and then we might find you a move to Bournemouth, because that's all you're consigning the lad to. So I don't see how you're getting a younger player in that way, unless you. And I think you've got to get somebody in who either backs themselves because they're a bit of a hot prospect in Europe, or they can very much play more than one position. Firpo, go back to his profile and his very superficial analysis is if he can play decently up the pitch, he may solve 2 problems in one go. If he's got a 45 million release clause and Barca and Real Madrid want him, he may actually be quite decent. So it doesn't seem the maddest link in the world.
It
may not be true, but it may seem the maddest link.
Just on this, though, the idea that he can play decently up the pitch.
Yes.
So he's basically able to sit in for who? Sadio Mane? Have you seen how good Sadio Mane is?
No. Look, but he may be able to provide in 4 or 5 games
so the idea
some pace down the side.
So hypothetically, you play 4-4-2 and you'd whack him left mid.
Yeah.
And that for the times you're playing 4-4-2.
I mean, I'm not an expert on the lad, and I don't know.
No, it's fine.
But I take those sort. I suppose I'm not trying to find a way it's true, but I actually don't find any other scenario, which don't involve any names, by the way, yet plausible. That's my problem with it, Mel. The young player scenario doesn't sit right for me. The cheap. Maybe the cheap old pro is the better one. The variation on a Ricky Lambert left back equivalent who likes a sortie.
Well, that's why I like a little bit of saucy Ryan Bertrand.
Yeah, that's not the maddest shout.
I like a little bit of saucy Bertrand. I was quite intrigued by a bit of Matt Target. Basically, I'll just buy Southampton left backs. I'd buy the lad they have at right back, Valerie. I think he's absolutely brilliant. But that's neither here nor there.
Patrice
really.
Evra still.
I can't just make things up.
You don't like to hear this because it's not exciting and it's not new and it's not fun. And trust me, when you have to write about transfers, I want all those things too. What Jurgen Klopp will do is look at what he has internally and he'll think, okay, say we bring someone in. When Robertson doesn't play and it's a big game and he needs somebody to fill in at left back, you know what he's doing? He's picking James Milner.
No. That is the actual answer.
And you know what he's doing after that? He's
Joe
putting
Gomez.
Joe Gomez
I know.
at left back.
But he is beginning to worry that he's not getting as much going forward with those options, as John pointed out with Joe Gomez.
If it's a big game and he's tactical, I think we spoke about that Barcelona game and we're saying if he had a chance again and if he knew, would he pick Joe Gomez again? He does. He does pick Joe Gomez over Trent. He did it for tactical reasons, and there's often times when I've watched a game and I thought person X weren't really that good, and he'll say he was the man of the match, and you're thinking to yourself, how? Because the tactical instruction I gave and how he followed it and what he restricted the opposition in doing so, and you think to yourself, okay, we often, it's from our view without knowing what they've been asked to do. But in big games, he will go through that process of trust and experience.
This is back to the fact that Mel, that whilst he's remarkably innovative in a number of different ways, that whilst he will experiment with positions where players play, whilst he, for instance, Liverpool's coaching will be the best thought through coaching in the pre-season in the world. Arguably, that's why they end up with the success they end up with last season, is the brilliance of what they do on the training ground. The manager is still at heart arguably much more of a small C conservative manager, selection to selection, than, for instance, someone like Rafa Benitez, who will decide halfway through a season, as he does at Newcastle, to rip up everything we've been doing, go to 3 at the back, play this player there, use Matt Ritchie as a wing back.
Yeah, I think the caricature of Jurgen Klopp so often does him a disservice because it highlights or emphasizes a lot of things that essentially aren't really him. So, we all know that Jurgen Klopp loves the chaos that football can cause through its unpredictability, the emotional pull. What he prizes above all is consistency and continuity. At the start of last season, he was asked, what's the most important thing for this Liverpool team? And he said those 2 facets. 1, we have to be consistent, especially in the league. We've shown that on our day, we are unplayable. But when it's not our day, we need to find that consistency in the belief in ourselves to go through repeat our processes. And it might not mean you're winning games easily, but it means you're still winning games because you're still operating out of habit even when things aren't going well. And the continuity in that, at Dortmund, he would always wonder what would it have been like if Götze didn't leave, Kagawa, Sahin, Lewandowski, if that young team that he built just stayed together for at least 2 more seasons, he was convinced they would have won at least 1 Champions League title and definitely more Bundesliga titles. So at Liverpool, Dortmund can't really be protected from football's, predators. They're just not that big enough to do it. Whereas Liverpool have put themselves in a position where they can be. And we've been speaking about this for a while, I think, for over a year now we've been talking. And it's no surprise that it's quiet for Liverpool, because we've been saying it, the policy is now one of retention instead of reconstruction. Liverpool don't have to do what Real Madrid and Barcelona and United are forced to do in this window, which is spent loads because they need, to fill so many positions. Liverpool have a core of a really, really good squad, and they're committed their futures. And I think there's also confidence that if a player leaves, as was the case with Coutinho, it's not like in the past where it all just explodes. You can actually get better when you sell a key player, which is what we did. Alisson, Van Dijk, Fabinho, all coming off the back of that sale.
We've got ourselves into a situation, Ian, and by us, not any of the people in the room, obviously the wider football world, where you've got 6 or 7 of Europe's biggest clubs looking to make significant changes through the summer. They've also picked up some of the Copa America and an African Cup of Nations, and they're all moving at the same time. It seems as though we want to talk, transfers with Liverpool. Liverpool are in a position where they're able to feel relatively stable at the moment, and so I think that there's every chance Liverpool are going to play the market a little bit more than they have in the past. In the past, they've been quite structured in their approach. We've known who it is they want. We've known when they want them. They've moved. At the moment, Liverpool, it seems as though they're quite happy to wait this one out a tiny little bit and wait until, let's say, the Pogba and Neymar deals move, and then sort of see where the pieces are.
Yeah, I think we're basically, as Mel was indicating there, Jurgen's built the team he wants. He's got the shape and he's got the squad that he wants. Anything else now is reacting to the market, but we're still getting we're kind of getting the mixed message that we will only react to the markets if there's something spectacular that happens, if there's somebody that we can't possibly turn down. But we're also getting quotes from them saying that we do need to spend to continue this. So I think it's a very weird summer for football in general, because we have got these 3, probably 4 giants when you put Juve into the mix, who are in the position where they've decided that they do have to start on an entirely new project because the teams are aging, the teams have not fulfilled what they want to do at this point. You could possibly say that about PSG as well, probably Bayern are in the mix on that one, where there are a lot of clubs who are going to be looking for major signings to actually transform their team completely. I know a lot's been spoken about this on the Gus, and I know on the Friday show, we didn't talk about Mbappe 2020, which I'm fully on board for.
It's the only way to be.
It is the only way to be. My only worry with it is I want Mbappe 2019. I don't want to wait another year. I get a year older.
Can't make that happen for you, Ian.
No.
But
Thank you for taking
we on the
this
t-shirts on this shit, John? Time is money.
I think within that, you're looking at things like the possibility of the De Ligt move, where over the weekend suddenly Juventus got linked with De Ligt for the first time in a very, very strong way. You're looking at major clubs who are going to absolutely throw money at the wall just to start the rebuild. And we know with the way it is with Juve, the rebuild is very much Cristiano Ronaldo instigated. He wants these players that he wants to play with, and they appear willing to invest in that for a lad who's probably going to be there another 2-3 years. So we're probably in the most comfortable position, probably us and City. In fairness, City have got a little bit of rebuilding to do. Obviously, the Fernandinho position is going to be needed. The idea that they're probably going to go for Maguire to replace Company. The article, I think it was the same article, the Paul Wilson article, talking about the fact that Stones clearly hasn't worked the way they thought it was going to. So 75 to 80 for Maguire seems to be an answer for them. Talking about the fact of ourselves and City as a duopoly going forward now, with everybody else falling so far behind. We and they do appear to be in the most comfortable position, where you're looking at it and going, well, this season it is possibly, maybe one lad who could go into front four and rotate back up. And as Mel said, the idea of Gomez playing at left back, we've seen it already. So the fact that we might do it again wouldn't be beyond the realms of question. So we're only looking at players who might make a massive difference immediately, or might just be a good squad player, which is in all honesty, a really good place to be.
I've got a feature coming out later on ESPN just talking about the position Liverpool find themselves in, where they are so stable and they are so comfortable, which means they don't have to get sucked in what is going to be quite a volatile market, because like you say, all the big clubs need to move. So selling clubs are completely aware of the strength they have at the moment, but also players are aware of their strength as well at the time, because they'll have the elite competing for them and they can make up their minds on their futures quite late. You also have players actively pushing because they want to go. Paul Pogba has made it clear he wants a new challenge. Christian Eriksen's done the same. Neymar has been unhappy at PSG for over a year.
Since he got there, I think.
Yeah, and finally, PSG have decided, we have indulged this player for so long. He's not even our major asset. We've got the world's best player, future best player.
For the next year.
Yeah, I was just about to say, until 2020. So there's so many big things that need to happen in this market, and if you're relying, if you as a club have to have one of these things go in your favor, it's a very, very unhappy place to be this summer.
And I think we've basically put ourselves over the last year to 18 months into a fairly unique situation for us, because we've not been this settled, this comfortable, literally since 1988. This is the most settled we've been as a club in terms of what we need. We seem to have. We've spent the last 30 years looking for the final piece of the jigsaw. And, I'm old enough to remember Paul Ince being the final piece of the jigsaw, and that working really well. And we're not looking for that any longer.
I'm thinking if I'm to buy into a no transfer summer, and I'm being talked into it around the table,
which is really going to bugger the gutter up something wicked.
Yeah, tune in. Recording it later. But I sort of just came into my mind a season which was very important to me as a young Liverpool supporter. 1978-79 season was a devastating Liverpool team. It held the record points total till, I don't know, a few years ago, if you exchange 2 points for 3 points for a win. The team of Dalglish and Souness and Hansen under Bob Paisley. It was a team, and although transfers weren't as big a deal back then, it was a team that was transformed from a season before where it had finished a poor second to Nottingham Forest by just the addition of a left-back, Alan Kennedy. But it wasn't his doing that transformed it. What was really the difference was that it was a team a year older and a year wiser. And this is the key, which I think you're alluding to, Mel.
Yeah.
Because that team, if I think about it, Dalglish and Souness had been new signings the year before and had had good first seasons, but they had sensational second seasons. Alan Hansen had had a breakthrough year as a young defender, but was fantastic that year. Terry McDermott had become a fixture in the team, but was heading towards being player of the year within a year of that. Now, I think we are, as fans, we don't have and go, how good Trent is now and Andy Robbo is now. They are going to get better, not just in 3 or 4 years' time, in this coming season. Van Dijk's going to get better. Salah should improve. Mane should improve. All of these boys across the park should improve. And that's without talking about the likes of Naby Keita, Fabinho, and the prospect that is Ryan Brewster.
Yeah, you know what I did earlier where I said what they'll do is look at what they have. So whereas we're desperate, like, who could Liverpool sign at left back? They'll think, we've got Milner and we've got Gomez that can fill the positions. I think what they'll also do is, having not made a signing yet, they'll look and think, how does this team automatically get better next season? And there is the continuity, the fact that they've all played together. They've had those shared experiences in the league and in the Champions League. So, that's a starting point. You also have Fabinho and Naby Keita not needing the settling in period. That's done now. So they don't need those 6 months to adjust, which is, what they had. You have Oxlade-Chamberlain, who was restricted to 4 matchday squads last season, working over the summer to get back in prime condition. He's ready for a full season. Like I said, Adam Lallana, 2 injury-hit seasons, has taken a shorter break this summer so he can get back to peak condition, because he's been told his versatility will be important.
He's playing left back. He doesn't know it yet.
During a packed schedule. So you go through and you look at the squad and you look at all the centre back competition. Joe Gomez was sensational at the start of the season. And then Joel Matip just decided he was the best centre-back in the world at the end of the season. So already, who partners Virgil van Dijk at the start of the next campaign? Dejan Lovren is now 4th choice. And, you know, he obviously wants to play regularly. He's valued at £25 million. No club has put in a concrete approach. And he might decide, actually, the club's coming in for me. I'm best served staying here and trying to work my way back the hierarchy. So that leaves you again with 4 solid players, you know, trying to fill 2 spots before you even think that Fabinho can fill in there.
It's, Rob, though, one where you don't want, and the worry would always be that there's a little bit of complacency. Complacency is the wrong word, but at times maybe a little bit of overconfidence in the players who are there, and at Liverpool we want them to be able to go again in all comps. I don't think they've been lucky. Everyone always says, I think we were fortunate with injuries. I think they've deliberately recruited players who they feel aren't going to get injured. We've got to be quite clear about that. But you can still get a contact injury. You can still find yourself in a little bit of trouble, certainly the way in which Liverpool play. That to me remains the priority. I'm more than happy to play Adam Lallana left back in all seriousness. I think he'd be fine. And he'd also be able to push up the pitch and play nicely inside. Where I begin to sort of have any worry is where the magic is, where the magic happens, and it is those front 3 positions.
Yeah, I mean, there was a bit of a mad frenzy of link to Ousmane Dembele last week, mainly by me. And I did sort of go, Jesus Christ, that would suddenly put all anxieties to bed here. You know, even if he wasn't the full tilt version of himself, it would just thicken out the squad in such a comprehensive way. So I'm fully behind the idea that we definitely need a really, really high quality 4th option for attack. What I don't know is just how good, and I don't think the world knows, maybe those inside the club do, just how good Ryan Brewster is. The noises around him remind me of the noises around Michael Owen, where it wasn't really a discussion. Michael Owen was put it in the pre-season. He came and he played half a game towards the end of the 97 season.
Scored at Wimbledon.
He was up and running. We knew nothing about him apart from he had this reputation, but we've had kids who've had reputations, but this was a big reputation. He started the pre-season, and the talk was, no, he will start as a first-team footballer. This is just not up for debate. I don't know if Brewster's at that level. If he is at that level, then that's entirely why they don't want to spend 80 million on a 4th-choice attacker, because he is that 4th-choice attacker, but I don't know.
But on that, Rob, come back to you on that. There's reports today, and as ever there are only reports, but that Origi may well want out, which would be perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
You know, he certainly, again, if he thinks Ryan Brewster's really good, because he'll have trained with him.
Where was that reported?
Just seen it on the Echo Live blog, so I can't go any further for you than that at the moment.
He's only got a year left, hasn't he, Origi? And so there's maybe talk that does he just also see that out, and does everyone shake hands when we get to the summer of him? That'll be 2020.
I have some inside track on Origi via a friend of mine who was with Origi's agent recently.
Oh yeah,
says Origi's staying, so it's defo true.
That friend of yours texted me.
Did he? Of course he did. Of course he did.
But no, Origi, Liverpool won't sell Origi this summer. It doesn't matter that he's only got a year left on his deal.
So they'll just swallow that, will they, if they need to? And
there's fresh terms on the table. Cost-wise, they made £6 million. They bought him for £10 million, made £6 million back from the Wolfsburg loan deal. He's helped them win the Champions League, which is priceless. So, you know, you can't put a figure on that. So if they lost him on a free, it would be like, okay. Divok's still young. I think
You're 22.
I'm all in on Divock for another season. Trust me, I wouldn't let him go under any circumstances myself.
And the feeling at the moment is that he will sign the fresh terms that have been offered. And if he doesn't sign, it's not because, you know, he's thinking, as a free agent I can get a massive signing on bonus or anything like that. It's just he's an academic, Divock. It's all about experiences, both the experience of playing regularly, but the experience of, you know, a new place.
Yeah.
The whole learning process that comes with that. But so those forward positions, you've got your front 3. You've got Divock Origi. You've got Ryan Brewster. We all expect more from Shaqiri next season. He said he's not going anywhere. He wants to get better.
Is the hype I've sort of surmised about Brewster, is that a reasonable summation? Is that kind of feeling inside the club as far as you're
having
aware?
spoken to people, not just at Liverpool, but England and Gareth Southgate is a massive Ryan Brewster fan. During the time he was out injured, would speak to him regularly, getting updates to check how far he was coming along, and said to him, as soon as you are in a sphere where you're fit and you're playing, you will be in contention for the seniors. But speaking to people at lower level in England, they said him and Sancho were just, you could just tell they were really, really special. Not only in terms of ability, but attitude. The right attitude, the willingness to stay extra if it meant to take on board all the criticisms, or if you were getting told your free kick technique has to be worked on, it wasn't like, well, I've just scored 4 free kicks, why does it need to be worked? It was like, taking everything on board. So those two have always been spoken about in the same breath. Obviously, Sancho's been very, very fortunate that he hasn't had, to go through what Ryan has. But I think that actually makes him stronger. One of the things that stands out to me about this young kid is that you've got Oxlade-Chamberlain, who's, a seasoned pro, been at Arsenal for ages, and both of them are injured at the same time. And Oxlade-Chamberlain says that Brewster is the thing that kept him going. He was the one lifting Oxlade-Chamberlain's spirits. To be able to have that sort of mentality and strength, like mental strength, as a kid, I think will serve him well, along with his obviously football abilities. Yeah.
What I suppose we don't know is, I mean, the big fear for me with Brewster was, I knew, like you, I'd sort of been, and John, you and I were following through the Central League, so we were following his progress. I suppose we had a flavour of how good he was, but then that's such a hiatus, that injury. What's your feeling, Mel, about what's happened since he's been back in training? We haven't seen any first team action. What have they seen? Have they seen the continuity they hoped for?
Yeah, so in terms of both him and Chamberlain, they were really surprised by how quickly the sharpness was there. Obviously, being sharp enough for training and everything coming off in training is different to how it would be affected by match sharpness or actually playing a game. But everything they've seen so far has given them confidence.
My only thing with Brewster is in his talents is that they've put so much work into making him a number 9. I don't think they'll be looking to play him anywhere else, at least in the short term. So this idea that he can come in and cover any of the front 3, I'm not sure. I think they've put so much work into him in terms of his position, in terms of making sure he's between the sticks. I don't think they then go, oh, but we're gonna do a bit left forward with you now, just to sort of.
He has done wide work.
I know he has, yeah. But I think. I don't know. That's just my kind of instinct. Is that there's only sort of one position for him, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I just mean in terms of if we're looking at the squad and we're looking at what Liverpool need, I think in the short term at least they'll be looking at Ryan as a number 9.
Just in general on that, I'll come back to it, John, straight away. One of the things I always do, when you work through a summer and you think about what they need for a summer, and I mentioned it before with the idea of the left back, is they are really if they want to do 4-2-3-1, if they want to do 4-4-1-1, if they want to do almost anything which isn't the 4-3-3, and you also want to rest Mane, you're really, really struggling for options at left mid. Keita plays there, I mentioned it last week, away at Bournemouth, for instance, but we all know it's not his position. We all know he wants to be in the middle of the park, and that's, when talking about what it is that they might need, I really do think that they do need another front 3 player. I really would like to see them do it, but the other thing that just is not there, if you wanted to use a change of shape to rest a couple of players, is someone who can play left mid, left wing, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough, and I think if they are looking to bring someone in, it would need to be someone who can do that, because Manny does so much for the team as well. So it's not like put a forward there who can do a bit who can attack from there. It's got to be who can carry the ball like Manny does, who can track like Manny does,
who can hold it up, who win his battle.
Yeah, exactly. And Manny's just so strong, isn't he, on the ball, and just takes you up the pitch so well and shields the ball so well. It's someone who can kind of do all that, and then we're into the situation which is sort of how we started this, where it's like, well, it's dead hard, isn't it?
Sorry, Mel, go on.
I think what I've taken from everything, because I've obviously been looking at all the conversations, whether it be on Twitter or in the Anfield Rap subscribers group on Facebook or whatever, and it's really good to be in a position where you're no longer having to convince the best players in the world that they should come to Liverpool. That sell is now a lot easier because of all the work Liverpool have done. But it's Liverpool's issue now is trying to convince just that bracket just below that you best serve coming here because, you know, you can develop with us. That's so tricky because you can go and start at other clubs that are, you know, you won't start at Liverpool. You can go and start at Manchester United in the position as we were discussing earlier. So, you know, Liverpool making that Sadio Mane signing a couple of seasons ago where everybody was like, oh, why on earth are you wasting that money on Sadio? He's not worth that much. How could he possibly be that good? Making that kind of signing now is hard for Liverpool because if you want to sign the next Sadio Mane, he's competing with the actual Sadio Mane. And does he want to come and sit there and watch Sadio do his thing? And,
well, how does City do with Mahrez? Is it just money or?
It's a very difficult thing to compare. We used to do it when we compared Liverpool and Manchester United, and it's just completely different qualifiers. At City, we talk about City being able to stockpile this attacking talent. Leroy Sané wants to go because he's not playing often enough. Leroy Sané is one of the best players in the world in his position.
If you listen to Guardiola on that, he seems to accept it's a bit of an occupational hazard. It's almost like he goes, okay, I'll buy the next Leroy Sané, and he either breaks through and proves it and outs Bernardo Silva or Sterling, or he doesn't.
Yeah.
But we win.
City are in a position to do that. City can make as many expensive transfer mistakes as they want, or they can pay as much money and then sell off the next season as they want. Liverpool don't operate like that. Liverpool, that squad harmony is a massive factor to everything Liverpool do.
Ian, is the next part of this is that I don't think Liverpool, and I think Liverpool, the way Liverpool have operated and the way the manager himself seems to want to operate, and I've said it before on this show when arguing about him talking about the wind. If you want Jurgen Klopp to be Liverpool manager, he'll be Liverpool manager on his own terms, and he doesn't to me seem like the sort of manager who will say one thing to a player with something else in mind. That he seems very all the reports that come through from every player who talks about him, he's very honest, he's very direct, he doesn't bullshit, he tells you the way in which it is, and he expects you to be able to get on with that. And I think that this is an issue where Liverpool, you know, you can see this as an issue, that the manager will not want to say one thing only to then at a later point be thinking, well, I might just ship you out next summer anyway, but you might be useful to have had sat around on the bench and you never know you're looking at raffle. He'd rather commit to his players because he commits to them every year and he expects them to commit to him.
Yeah, and he's been very clear. I mean, Lallana's a very good case this, isn't he? He's been told up front early on, you have a part to play next season. Origi's been told he will have a part to play. So, you know, when you hear things like this from Klopp, you 100% believe him. And if we're 100% believing him, obviously the lads who are with him all day, every day, know that he stands by what he says. He's always backed his players. He's always trusted them on the field. And I think it's, as Mel was saying, we've gone through that couple of seasons where we've highlighted the players that we've wanted, that he's known could do a job for him, because he wanted Mane when he was at Dortmund, didn't he? He said one of his big mistakes is not taking Mane at the time because he came across the lads who was a little bit shy and he didn't think he'd necessarily integrate with the dressing room as was at the time. So he's taken the lads that he's known, between him and the transfer committee, they've known that their coaching could take them up to another level. We saw it with Mo as soon as he came in, that we took him to another level. We've seen it with Mane. Mane's level over the last year, and specifically over the last 7-8 months, I think, towards Christmas and beyond, he just basically went up an entire another level in his game. So I think he's at that position now where he knows the lads he trusts, he knows who he can back, and he's backing them publicly. He's backed them publicly all along. So the fact that so much of the success of the club at the moment seems to be based on the dressing room that he's created and the atmosphere and camaraderie between the players, which you see once again, you see with Ryan Brewster in the celebrations after the European Cup. You see that he's got a squad of 20 players there who are all happy to be together, and you've got the likes of Brewster and Kelleher who are celebrating as though they're first team players. To have them do that, they're obviously involved on a day-to-day basis, so the manager's involving these.
I mean, you say that I celebrated like I was a first team player as well.
So did I. I mean, these are gone.
John, just to almost round this off just a tiny little bit, because I think a lot of this is is in part attitudinal. I think, the idea that Liverpool don't want a big money left back sat around, we can say that there's a financial argument for that, and that could also be true. But you do also think that it is the way in which the group operates and the way in which the idea of getting the best out of the players is really, really important, I think, to the manager, but also to get the best out of them for them. That's the dance that's got us here, to be quite honest with you, and that is worth remembering, however frustrating it is at the moment, where you're thinking, just buy Junior Firpo. It's not my money.
Also, I'd say that there's a lot of things that could and should kick us on next year, one of which is new players, but also the fact that we've all talked about players developing. I just think, and maybe it's not been talked about enough generally, just the fact that the European champions is a huge thing. This was a team that hadn't won anything, and now they have, and they haven't just won something, they've won the biggest one of the lot. No matter how much we want the Premier League, how much that means to Liverpool Football Club, the fact is that the European Cup is literally a bigger trophy. and so there's just how much that's going to do for so many of these players, in terms of, they're all at really good ages and they're all likely to develop, and I think there's quite a few of them who can kick on, and I've finally got around to listen to the review of the review, and Sean Rogers made a really good point about, like, if you look at our season collectively, it's brilliant, but if you look at individually, like, there's actually quite a few players who you could reasonably expect more from. Do you know what I mean? Mo Salah's had a better season for Liverpool than he had last season. I'd argue maybe Firmino has in the past as well. There's only so many players who had their best season, even for Liverpool last season, never mind what they could kind of potentially do. And so I think just the idea of now having this, it's not even getting a monkey off your back, because that makes it sound like a negative. I mean more the positive of walking, talking, acting like European champions, and not just a team who's won this trophy kind of out the blue. Is a team who got to the final, got beat unfortunately, and then went on to win it next year. I just think is massive for this group of players.
97 points.
He got 97 points and looks to go again. And I just think if we don't do anything, which I'm sure we will, but even if we don't, there's lots of reasons to expect us to kick on again this season. But I think possibly the most significant one is that now they know the winners.
They know the winners, Rob, but they also, again, part of this process is they all felt part of it. As Ian said before, you got Kelleher and Brewster having the time of their lives and enjoying it, but also feeling as though they were part of the group. And I think that's what is different to, for instance, I'm not going to talk about City. Let's talk about sort of Chelsea teams around 2005, where you've got lads like Stephen Sidwell bouncing about and Scott Parker who are made to feel by circumstances like bit part players. That doesn't appear to be the case here with this Liverpool side, that they do all feel part of it. And so again, you've got to take the rough with the smooth on that, which is maybe they won't be frivolous, or maybe they won't be impulsive around bringing somebody in, but instead will plan, knowing that everyone will feel part of the party.
Yeah, that was so noticeable, wasn't it, in Madrid? You had to take a step back and to sort of marvel at how pleased the likes of Sturridge were, Shaqiri, Brewster. And then you stopped and went, no, so they should be. Sturridge had started against Newcastle, hadn't he, a couple of weeks before?
Well, he scores against PSG at home.
Well, he scores against PSG, but even till late in... Although he has a big patch this season where he's not really getting a look, and he came back into it. Shaqiri is in it for a major bit before Christmas. He's out, but here he is delivering the key ball onto Origi's head. Origi obviously has the most incredible renaissance. But as you said, and a kid like Brewster feeling very much part of it. Well, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, for God's sake, he's hardly kicked a ball in anger all season, but he's celebrating. There's no sort of, if you sort of sometimes I look at these team groups, and which one's got a slight far away look in his eye, like I'm here but I'm not quite, because it's not. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain did not look like a player who felt any less entitled or a part of that triumph than anyone else you can name, than James Milner, say. He felt it was his triumph as much as it was Van Dijk's or Milner's or anybody else's, because he's been part of when we've talked about this before, Neil, that Madrid isn't just a one-year campaign, it was actually a two-year campaign that was blipped in Kiev. And I think that's why you see that attitude from some squad players like Chamberlain. No, I got us halfway there. The boys completed the journey, but it's still a big part of my life.
Last week I had Ian and Rob here. I asked the question that I'm going to ask everybody, but as I've already asked them, I want to ask them again, which is what's reasonable to expect from Liverpool going into this next campaign. John, you've just been very, very bullish about them, their outlooks, their possibilities, but this is off the back of a season where they've gone and got themselves 97 points and they did win the Champions League. Sport sometimes doesn't work like that. What if the referee's a Premier League referee and disallows Origi's goal against Barcelona and they go up the other end and get one? But it would have been disallowed in the Premier League. Adam Melia has convinced me of this. Someone would just, the referee would have gone, nah, that's
Adam Melia has also convinced me of this.
Yeah, he's very much got, the referee would just have gone, no, that must just be cheating.
Yeah,
on no grounds other than just bloody mindedness.
Boldness.
Yeah.
But something would have happened. But anyway, that sometimes things can just sort of go against you. Let's be fair about that. But what are a reasonable set of expectations for Liverpool supporters en masse almost to have for this squad this season?
I think Liverpool now needs to aim to win a trophy every season, and I think what that trophy is, I think will almost doesn't matter because I think it'll change. But I think with this level of talent and the squad, what they've got, the investment that's gone into it, and just at the place that they've ended up, I think Liverpool wants to be winning a trophy every season, and I think they should be disappointed if they don't. This year's a bit of a funny one, obviously, because we're competing for about 7, and so just a case of there's obviously early opportunities to win that Super Cup, and then also there's this trip in December, which is might mess us up a little bit in terms of the league, where you're going to miss a game and blah blah blah, but also the way it goes. But I'd count that one personally. I think if you can say you're world champions, then what a brilliant thing to say. And Liverpool have never won it, and that's a real shame. And so I think we want to be in contention for the title come beginning of May. I think how realistic that looks, but then we'll have to kind of wait and see really. But I think if we don't win something, we should be disappointed. And I think if we're in March and we're saying, we haven't got a chance to win in the league, I think we should be disappointed because that will feel like underachievement to me.
Okay.
So I'm saying a title challenge and a trophy, I think.
A title challenge and a trophy. Just out of interest on Europe, do you think when you say a title challenge and a trophy, do you think that are you looking for a genuine push deep into European territory again, or if they went out in the last 16 because they got someone good?
Yeah, I think that can happen, and I think if you say to me now we come second but we have a real good go again, and then City get 114 points or something mad, we go out of Europe early. We have it's a tough group. We end up coming second, and then we get beat by Barcelona or PSG or whatever or whoever it is. I still think PSG are the best team we played last season. By the way, I had a big think about it while I was mowing the lawn yesterday.
Best performance at Anfield? Who do you think was the best performance at Anfield?
I don't know. I'll have to get out with
Tottenham.
I'll have to get out with the lawn
Maybe
again.
Tottenham.
I said Tottenham. I didn't think about it, but I wasn't mowing the lawn at the time. I think it was the best side I saw at Anfield come and play that season. Tottenham in the second half.
I think maybe Chelsea for 20 minutes after they were 2-0 down.
That's just everyone went mad though.
Yeah,
everyone just went mad.
Yeah.
I mean, you may as well just. I mean, fucking hell. It still remains the maddest until we managed to top it with the last game of the season. The 10 minutes after Chelsea.
Man City were decent. They did nearly beat us.
At Anfield, it was weird that game.
It was a crap game, wasn't it?
Really
Nothing happened,
weird.
It was boxes in early rounds, jigger, wasn't it? So yeah, no, I'd be fine. Yeah, I mean, it happened in 2005, didn't it? We win it, and then we go out to Porto, and it's hard. We've got to 2 finals, and it feels. Well, basically, Jurgen Klopp hasn't lost the knockout, and it's going to happen at some point.
Do you know what I found myself doing now? This is an indicator maybe of expectation. I started paying attention to who the very biggest clubs in Europe might buy this season, not just out of salacious interest or knock-on effects across the transfer market, which has usually been my... Because I used to think this way in the 80s, because it's our business winning the European Cup, and I don't want to see Barcelona stronger. Normally, I didn't give a shite really what Barcelona did from season to season, as long as they didn't take our players. I'm not that arsed. In fact, the stronger they were, the more likely they were to beat Man United in the later rounds. I'm now thinking I don't want Frankie de Jong to work out for them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's a sign of
no, definitely. But I think no one will want to draw Liverpool, and I wouldn't be surprised if we are in another final. But if it doesn't happen, and win an FA Cup final instead, then isn't that nice?
By the way, everyone's sleeping on Van der Beek. Melissa, what do you think is a reasonable set of expectations?
I think definite trophy, like John said. Once you get one, that has to be the habit. I think the players will have the appetite to add to that. I think Liverpool will go far in Europe again, just by virtue of
being boss.
Yeah, they're so complete and they're so difficult to play. And Jurgen Klopp's record is, we sit here and we think it's ridiculous, but it's by design. It's not an accident. A lot of work goes into that. they will definitely be, again, City's closest competitors for the title. What I think is there shouldn't be any sort of anxiety or apprehension in terms of the league. So if Liverpool maybe lose one of the first 3 or 4 games, it's not, they shouldn't, oh my goodness, we lost one game in the league all of last season and we've already lost one now. I think there should be calmness and composure, because City lost more games than Liverpool and still ended up winning the league. It's all about winning. So I think just I want them to deal with those, if that happens, to deal with it better. But they showed last season that psychologically they are so much stronger. And I think what they would have taken from last season as well, and that league campaign, was that believing in yourselves and being braver. Maybe they, you can't knock 97 points, but they probably will have a look at it and think, we may have been fearful of losing, of dropping points, instead of thinking, let's just go out and win this game. But yeah, I definitely expect a trophy. I expect them to go very far in Europe, and I expect them to challenge for the title.
Just want to pull back on one little thing there, almost like be more open to the possibility of getting beat, because it strikes me that came from the manager as much as the players. The manager himself, I think, was making decisions, and it's not a criticism, making decisions arguably Arsenal away, West Ham away, I'd probably venture a little bit. I think Liverpool could possibly be a bit more bullish earlier.
And Everton away.
United and Everton. And Leicester home, I think, was a difficult set of circumstances. Liverpool were plagued by illness, a couple of injuries. They were coming off the break, and I'm low. And also the weather was mental. And it's important to say that the weather was absolutely insane, and I don't think that helped. And also Leicester are really good, and that gets sort of always lost in the wash as well, Mel. Yeah. But there is something, isn't there, where that came from, that wasn't just the players on the pitch, was also the manager.
Yes, exactly. And it's, again, the part of development is learning, and I think they will have all taken a lot from that, especially seeing the way City ended the season, where they just went into every game convinced they were going to win it. And I think Liverpool did that as well, but in that period they were apprehensive because they had, it seemed like, everything to lose. It's very easy to sit here and say, be braver, don't worry about getting beat. But in that, when you're in that circumstance, it's safety first seems like the right thing to do. But I think they will definitely benefit from it next season.
Okay, it's a funny one to look at those games as well. And I agree with the broad point, but I remember Everton, every substitute we put on played worse than the last one.
Oh yeah.
Like, I think that's the worst I've ever seen James Milner play. Like, he looked like he never played footy before.
It was amazing.
So if you're Jurgen Klopp, you go, well, I'm putting lads on, and they're doing that. And unless I'll just hook them straight away, which I might do.
James Milner's first 20 in the derby was just terrific. I mean, we're pulling the book thing together, and I was just reading some of it, and in my piece I'd gone, it's no laughing matter, and then 2 paragraphs later I went, it is a laughing matter, how bad James Milner was. Like James himself, I'd like to think now he's European champion. If he came in here, we could say, can we watch the video of you in the derby, James?
So you can make all the subs you want.
I think that there was that point in the season, that February period of the draws into March, where he thought these might become to be seen as good points.
Oh, yeah, a good point. Yeah, they were bullish after Old Trafford.
I think he was right, because he was entitled to expect City to drop his points somewhere. And I think what changes is, by the time it comes to Tottenham at Anfield, where it's coming to the closing stages, he just goes, it will not be a good point. It will be, we have to have 3, because these wankers are going to win every single fucking game. By that point he changed his mind.
The other thing that changes is that they get knocked out of the Champions League. City. That's the other thing that changes.
Well, of course.
And you can't control that.
Yeah.
I think even if they didn't get knocked out of the Champions League, the league run for them would have remained as it is, just because of the mentality that they had. The way they played at the end of the season was... And even when they were just getting over in game, towards the very end, they were only just getting over the line.
Nervous,
you watched that Tottenham game in the league and you thought, how on earth have Tottenham not got anything from this game? Leicester, the chance that falls to Iniesta. Yeah, there was so many. Even
I'm angry I watched the Leicester game still. The
first half against Burnley was so good in that half. I was like, whoa.
They basically win the league on a goal the company would never score in any other game.
So I think that also, actually, the way City end the season, Liverpool can take some heart from that as well, because they weren't just faultless and flawless. They were having to battle for that. And I think it shows Liverpool as well that City at the end were feeling the heat. The pressure was on them as well, even as celebrated and as pedigreed and as experienced as they are.
I still maintain that the credit that City haven't got for the season is the amount of courage that they show and how bullish they are and how hard they work and how much they graft. You can talk about how the squad's been assembled, etc., and you can talk about its brilliance, but Raheem Sterling and Bernardo Silva absolutely drag them through the last 5 or 6 games, and they haven't had the credit they deserve for that. But it's also it's the sort of credit that feels as though it's with faint praise, whereas actually I think it's the ultimate quality in football is togetherness and battling through at difficult times, but it's for whatever reason it's been glossed over. Been excellent stuff. Thank you very much to Melissa Reddy, to Ian Salmon, to John Gibbons, and to Rob Gutmann. It has been the Anfield Wrap in association with RedsBet. Do take it easy. Do enjoy the whole of your week. We will be back with more and more shows if you subscribe, and if not, with the Weekender on Friday morning. Don't go anywhere.